sometimes we can overreact to that and sort of withdraw. And I know I kind of struggle with this sometimes at church because, you want to love the kids and so forth, but then you think, oh no, what if somebody thinks I'm weird or whatever? You sort of have, and that's the society we live in. We've got to be careful, but we don't want to withhold affection from people just because of the weirdness. That would be overreacting to something Satan is doing and giving in to him, because affection and love and kindness and all those things are good, and we ought to practice that in a godly way. Amen? Amen. But the thing, and I think this is so important because little kids don't understand words so well. They're just learning words, right? But they do understand cuddle time, don't they? I mean, we got Patricia up here. She's got her baby all bundled up here. That baby is going to, you see these little papoose holders and so forth people carry. That's just lots of love. That's lots of, good loving from mama and from mama. Because nobody else really wears those things because nobody, dad's not going to strap that on. But it does communicate. There's a bond that's developed from that intimacy and from that affection. It's so important. And I think Jesus understood this. You read the accounts of Jesus, how Jesus would call the little children to him, and he would bless the children. He would lay his hands on them. He would touch them. He would have them come to him and be close to them. Affection, really expressing warmth and love and kindness to little children. Of course, the other account in Luke 15, you have the father. When the prodigal son comes home, he runs to him and hugs him and kisses him. He shows this is God, the Father, showing great love and affection to the prodigal son. So affection, warmth is something that God does, and God wants us to. And as a church, we're a hugging church, but we can always grow in that, right? We can always get better at our expressions of love and kindness to one another. We can always, we've always got room for improvement. So in thinking about that, make sure that when people think about our church, that they think, oh, that's really that's really a church where you feel welcome. Even if you're kind of a stranger, you've only been there one time, then you feel like you're part of things. So, but that's part of who God is. God is affectionate. God is warm like that. And I think about my own dad. How affectionate. My wife. I think the first time I took my wife home to meet my dad. He was probably, how old was he? In his 70s? 65 and 70s, something like that. But he put a big old kiss on her, she was like freaking out and so forth. It was like, because it was a wet kiss, on the cheek, because he didn't have any teeth then. So, but he's very, very affectionate and very kind. Everybody loves him. He's just he's easy. I've got to bring him down here sometime. He's just, he's fun to be around. He's a loving dad. And, but he, and I can even remember, and I think this is important because I can remember times in my life when I was doing drugs and drinking, and when times, I remember, I think I've told you the story of my conversion, that I was out smoking pot and I was hallucinating and I thought I'd died and gone to hell, and I started walking home from this party. In fact, at that funeral, I went to my mom's funeral, some of my buddies that were at this pot party with me were at the funeral, and so we were kind of talking about that night, because after that, I moved to Florida and started going to church. I just kind of freaked out after that, because I thought I died and gone to hell. And I got serious about God. Now you can say, well, that was this or that. It was psychological or whatever, but it was real for me. Okay, it worked. Yeah, it was a conversion experience for me. It was a Pauline conversion. I saw the light. Okay, and the light was bright, and the bright light said, "You're going in the wrong direction, Buster. You better get your act together." So, but anyway, I remember that night. Man, I was freaked out. I was scared. I stopped at Rolando's house, a cop in the neighborhood I knew, and I knocked on his door and said, "Hey, I've been smoking pot today." He said, "Get off my porch, get out of here." He was like, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. He didn't want to mess with some idiot on his front porch. Probably like Rolando would probably do that too. But I remember going home and I remember knocking on the door, at my house. It was 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I remember seeing my dad come to the door. He was just concerned. He wasn't there to beat me down or anything. I'm like 15 or 16 years old at this time, maybe 17. I don't know. Out of it anyway. But I just remember that. Just the affection he showed and the kindness that he showed to me and the warmth. And I really know from my parents, there's nothing I can do for them not to love me. There's nothing on this planet or anything that I could do in my life to stop them from loving me. And that's called unconditional love, right? It really does, and it really called me back when I was in need, And I think for us as parents, that's something we got to communicate to our kids. Hey, I don't agree with what you're doing, what you're doing is wrong, but they need to know that they can always come home, that they're going to find a place of love and warmth in our arms there. So a question I have for you this morning, have you hugged your kid today? Tim, you gotten a hug from your parents today? I bet you have. Okay. It's good to hug your kids. Hug your husband too, right? This doesn't just work for kids. It's also for relationships, right? Hugging is a good thing. It's a good thing. And so we should do a lot more of it. Someone has said that if every child received the affection he craved, gangs would disappear, and so would a lot of promiscuity and drug abuse and other negative behavior associated with peer pressure. That really is true. And a lot of times, kids are searching for something that they're not getting at home. And so they're going to go to other places and try to get, because they all need to be loved and they all need to be shown affection. Someone has asked, does too much affection spoil a child? I don't know, what do y'all think? Does too much affection spoil a child? Can you show too much love to your kids? Can you hug them too much? Probably not. I don't think so. I don't think there's any danger of that, okay? But some folks have kind of wondered about that, obviously. They've asked that question. People interviewed have said that, parents that have said that one of their biggest regrets when looking back on their life is that they just didn't show their kids enough love. That's one of the things that when people talk about regrets in life, they say, I just didn't show my kids enough. I didn't hug my kids enough. And I didn't give them enough affection and show them how much I really care for them. And so from that, the admonition this morning is bless your children with lots of affection. Be purposeful in it. Make sure, if you're very affectionate, then be more affectionate. You can always grow in this area, right? You can always give more love. And give them lots of love, lots of kisses. Now, along with affection, something else that needs to be a part of our families as a real blessing, I'm sort of going to balance this point with this, and that is our kids need loving discipline. Amen. I said loving discipline, right? That means, really, they need to know that we're disciplining them because we really do love them. We really do care about them. We really want the best for them. Proverbs 13:24 says, and we need to read these again and hear these again because we get a little soft on this because our society is pushing so hard against this, okay? Proverbs 13:24. He who spares the rod hates his son. He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is careful to discipline him. Proverbs 19:18. Discipline your son, for in that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to his death. 22:15. Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it far from him. 23:13. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish him with the rod, he won't die. He'll be all right. Yeah, sometimes our kids act like they're dying, right? Actually, for me, I always act like I was dying before the first lick. I was like, ah! I'm freaking out. Now here's the thing. Kids are smart. Yes. Kids are very smart. And they know when they can kind of get away with stuff. And they know when they can, when things are going, like in a restaurant, if they're acting up, they know that you can't really do a whole lot. They know that you're sort of limited. You don't want the child services coming and getting your kids and all that. But by the way, it is, what's that? In church when you're singing. Yeah, right. Well, it's Father's Day, so you got to have a lot of grace on Father's Day, right? When your kids are taking over. But the thing is we've got to win these battles with our kids, these little battles. Because I think it's James Dobson said, when you draw a line in the sand and tell your son or your daughter not to cross that line, then they look at you and they step across the line. Because they're looking for a fight.
That's right.
You better give it to them. They are looking for a fight, and you better give it to them, right? Because if you don't, they're going to cross all kinds of. You're big enough. When they're this big, you can take them on. You can win that battle. But when they get this big, you're out of. You're gone. You're a goner then.
That's why you have girls.
Exactly. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Talk to you in a few years. But here's the thing. You've got to win those battles decisively, folks. As parents, when you draw the line, You don't have to draw a lot of lines. You don't have to make a lot of rules, but when you make a rule and they step across the line and they're looking at you like, what you gonna do? You better bring something. You better come with everything and here's the thing, they need to know you won the battle, and you need to know you won the battle. There's no question who won that battle. It was like a decisive victory. It's not like Iraq, where it's kind of like, well, we're winning, but are we really winning? It's one of those, things like, no, this is over. This is, you know what I'm saying? That's good for your kids. It's not a power play. It's an authority thing where you are the parent and they are the child. Now you can be buddy with them. You need to love up, have all kinds of affection, but you've got to have loving discipline if you want to have kids that are not going to be in jail, for half their life. Not just jail, but other things. Just kids that are respectful and fun to be around, right? Because you've been to restaurants, you've been to stores where the kids are just so out of control. You can't even enjoy your meal. You don't even want to shop there. It's kind of they're just they're taking over. They're freaking out. They're screaming. They're yelling, and they're just causing a huge scene. And it's just not pleasant. It's not pleasant for the parents, but they don't know what to do because they don't know how to handle this, and the kid, they know what to do. I'm going to get what I want because if I yell loud enough, I scream loud enough, I'll get what I want. But these passages in Proverbs are very simple. A loving parent disciplines their child. And see, I think society tries to kind of tell us that, okay, if you're disciplining your kids, you're not really loving them, you're not letting them express themselves, yada, 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 But the truth is that a loving parent from Proverbs disciplines their child. And again, it's not a beat down where you're just trying, I'm talking loving discipline here, right? It's not just a beat down, but it's discipline where your child is learning the way that's right. When your child does what is right, there are good consequences. You need to reward them. You need to encourage them. But when they do wrong, when they're going down the wrong path, you need to discipline them and let them know, hey, this is wrong and this is going to have some consequences. Because there will be consequences later on. In school, when they're doing stuff, when their teacher's trying to teach them and they're not listening and they're just running all over the place and so forth and so on, there's consequences to not disciplining your kids. And ignoring it doesn't help anything. Just ignore it. It's not going to help it. So we need to, bottom line, help our kids distinguish from right and wrong at an early age and help them to choose the right way. Now, I think the other thing that in terms of this discipline thing, let me just give you a few guidelines here. One is make sure when you're disciplining that your anger is under control. If needed, if you need to, send your child to the room. Hopefully you've got enough power to get them to the room, okay? Hopefully it's not gotten where, they're not going to go when you send them. But send them until you gain control, okay? Don't spank your children in anger. Explain why the punishment is necessary. They need to, sometimes when they're really, really young, their explanation, just forget about it. Just spank them and, it's over. But you need to love up on them, right? And then, of course, follow up all that discipline with love. You need to have lots of affection. You need to have, there needs to be repentance and restoration. There needs to be an understanding that, hey, we're going to move on from here. I'm not going to put you in the doghouse. And, that those kinds of things aren't going to happen in our family. But bless your children with affection and loving discipline. That's the first point. The second point is bless your children with affirmation. Now, this is a stretch, I know, but he says, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field. Okay, now I think on your outline, the Word document got it kind of whacked out there, so it doesn't really make sense. But the verse says, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field. Now, that's supposed to be a compliment, and it was a compliment back then, right? Because, and guys sort of take that as a compliment. Hey, you sweat a lot. Oh, yeah, I do sweat a lot. Yeah, the guys are kind of weird like that, But it's one of those things that, obviously, he's a hunter, and these are country folks, and they enjoy the smell of the field. It's a real compliment here. So he's really affirming his son. And I think a lot of times we as guys sort of miss this in our conversations, in our relationships with our children, where a lot of times we don't affirm with words like we just don't get it sometimes. I was reading the story about a young mother who had just given birth, and she was at the nursery, and her husband was there in the window, just peering at the baby, just looking at him, just deep in thought. And the mother comes up behind him, puts her arms around him and says, "What are you thinking about, dear?" He says, "Man, I just don't understand how they can make that cradle for $89.95. How in the world can they do that? That is unbelievable." Yeah, guys miss it sometimes, right? For the most part, guys aren't sentimental, and they don't think sentimentally, and they don't think about how to express things a lot of times. It happens, right? But we need to get better at this. We need to learn to, and my wife is good at this with our kids. I mean, I was thinking about this as our kids were growing up. She was always encouraging them and speaking up to them and really trying to give them a vision for things. And a lot of times I would be, Isaiah would have a great basketball game, and I'd say, "Well, you were pretty selfish on this play. I'm kind of looking at the things that he didn't do right, and so forth and so on." But she was the encourager. But Colossians, y'all thought that was funny. That was a shame. That was a shame. Shame on me. But it's the truth. Okay.
He turned out great, bro.
Yeah, but
Your heart was in the right place.
thank you. Okay, I'll take it. Colossians 3:21. Here's the other thing in relation to this: avoid things that embitter your child. Colossians 3:20 says, "Do not," this is parent, "do not embitter your child, or they will become discouraged." Yep. Do not embitter your child, or they will become discouraged.